Here we are. It's Wednesday, which means it's time for lunch for the soul. Welcome, everybody. I love having you here with me every week. This is a time where we can share unbelievable stories of families, most of the time, who have really gone through the unthinkable, but they've done it with style, they've done it with grace, and probably most importantly, they've been able to pull that off because of their faith. The Zellers are a perfect example of this. I want to welcome this beautiful couple who have an incredible story to share. Welcome to Lunch for the Soul.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. I tell you what, you have been through a whole lot, all the way from South Dakota to Texas. So, well, let's get started with your journey, starting with your precious little boy. So, first of all, let me just bring up a picture so everybody can see your beautiful family, and then we can see who we are talking about. So, first of all, we are talking about Big Brother in this picture, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us all about little Daxton and what he started going through when he what in October, so not quite a year ago, when he was
Yeah.
only 4 years old.
Yeah. So it was back in October of 21. He was 4 years old, and we were at a local library, and I had the kids with Seda. She's 6 years old, and Daxton was four at that time. And we, after school one day, we were just going to our local library, and we were going in through a breezeway, so two doorways. And I noticed after the second doorway that Daxton wasn't with me anymore. I turned around and I was like, Daxton, you're gonna get hit by the door. And he was just standing there still, and he said, "Mom, my eyes are blurry." And I'm like, "Okay," and I just thought maybe it was going from the cold air to the hot air within the breezeway at that time. And so, although it gave me it was quite alarming. I was nervous about it, but then I was just like, "Okay, let's just move forward." I had mentioned it to my husband that night when he had gotten home from work, and then we noticed it again, and I had noticed it a couple times actually before my husband had seen it. And it was alarming. It was very alarming. I mean, my our son was standing there just still. He could respond to us, but he was just, "Mom, my eyes are blurry." That's the only way he would describe it to us. And finally, my husband did see an episode, and he said, "Okay, maybe he just needs to go to the eye doctor, but let's make a local appointment."
Yeah, I
That
didn't I didn't think anything of it at first. I thought maybe it was just a kid, daydreaming, looking off,
right.
staring too long, not blinking, and his eyes get a little blurry. Until I saw the first time it happened that we were in our kitchen, and you just knew right away that it wasn't, something normal. So we decided to get an appointment.
Mhm. I can't hear you. Sorry.
So they were looking at his brain through an EEG.
Yeah, so we made our local appointment and we just said, "Hey, here's what's been going on." She said, "Let's order an EEG." And so in November, right before Thanksgiving, we had an EEG done. Seizures weren't detected in the EEG, but there was abnormal activity. They said part of his brain was slowing down as he was getting drowsy. And so they said, "We want to move forward with a 3 to 5 hour EEG." For some reason, we just decided, well, we were having a baby in January. This was November at this time. And in January of this year, 2022, we were having our third child. And so we said, can we just skip the 3 to 5 hour EEG for now and let's just get to the MRI? We were wanting to rule out the worst.
Yeah, we knew the first EEG already came back um,
Abnormal.
abnormal. So in my head, so it was getting difficult getting appointments in a timely manner with COVID and stuff going on. And I just talked to Shalene. I said, you know, we're going to get the same results back most likely from the second EEG. Let's just do the MRI so we can figure out if it's more serious than, you know.
At
Right.
what point did they realize that those moments of the blurry vision were in fact seizures? Could then they tell that to get on the MRI, or did you end up doing the longer EEG? What made them finally realize that?
Just through the MRI and the
Well,
location
That's
of the
how.
tumor.
yeah, I think, the doctors, he wasn't, the doctors couldn't see him doing it most of the time. So just through our explanation of what was going on, the results from the EEG, and some other factors that he had is as far as him just having a certain type of birthmark on his leg. They knew that the brain could have developed a little bit different because skin and brain develop at the same time.
And thank
And
you for bringing that up because I think that's such an awareness campaign for parents. And you certainly don't want anyone to ever be concerned about a birthmark because a lot of the times they don't mean anything. It's a birthmark. But did you ever know that that could be tied into his brain and that they were looking for that?
Yeah,
Right.
it was funny. We didn't even know he had this birthmark until
It was like he was probably 3. We were at the pool one
2
day
or
back
3.
where we used to live, and it was like, "Daxton, you have this big birthmark on your left ankle." Like, and it was just a slightly colored, different color, but I'm like, it almost wraps around his whole ankle, and I've never noticed that. I'm like, "How did we
So
not notice this birthmark on our
right.
child?"
We were with the neurologist, and she had asked, "Do you guys does he have any birthmarks?" Birthmarks? And we're like, "It's funny you asked. We just, he's got one on his shin." And she
Yeah.
asked to take a look at it, and she had, a scientific name for it, but they kind of called it like a coffee swirl. It kind of looked like if you had coffee with creamer in it that
Mhm.
it had been spilled on your skin, just slightly different color. And when she saw it, she said, "It's good that he only has one, but this is the type of birthmark that we look for in these situations." And that's when the MRI was ordered so that they could take a look at his brain closely.
And then that's when they figured out that there was a tumor. But at that point, and really never was there a point where you suspected cancer, right? So it always looked like a benign tumor.
We were never it was unsure of, here in our local, hospital after the MRI results, they had just said, we had his MRI done, the results were reported to us the next day, and nothing, was said. It could be cancerous, it could be benign, but we were meeting with the pediatric neurosurgeon that following
Yeah.
Monday.
But I mean, they had figured from what was happening with him that this could have been there since birth, and it was really they kind of knew that it was slow growing from the get go. And so we kind of got a heads up that the doctor's personal feel was it was benign and something slow growing. But of course, you hear the word tumor, and
Oh, yeah. And then I think it would be very difficult to have a child who's having these episodes. You don't ever know when it's happening. And then you're told, well, maybe we'll just wait until what he's 8 or 9 and think about surgery then. That would be hard to stomach. Is that what made you decide to get that second opinion here in Texas?
Yeah,
absolutely,
it was without a doubt after we had been in touch with Dr. Sandberg the Friday before. We had found out just through his sister had family friends that had their little boy underwent surgery with Dr. Sandberg, and they said, "Why don't you just reach out to him for a second opinion?" And we kind of thought, well, we need a second opinion. We didn't know, but after we met with our local neurosurgeon and went over a care plan that he had for Daxton, we left without a doubt, knowing we went right down and got the MRI images on a disc to send to Dr. Sandberg. We knew it wasn't.
Mhm.
We knew in our hearts. We did without words. We didn't even say anything to each other. We're like, let's go get the disc. Let's get
yeah,
the images.
we met with our local neurosurgeon. He's fairly new to the area because this part of South Dakota has just finally gotten big enough to where they felt they needed a neurosurgeon. And we talked to him, and he was concerned about the location. He said, this is what this brain tumor looks like to us. It was called a DNET to them at this point, which is a type of tumor. And he said, it's really slow growing. It's kind of in a not the greatest spot on the brain. If it was on the surface, we'd get it now. But they ultimately decided they wanted to monitor it every 3 months for 3 to 5 years, knowing that eventually it was going to have to be removed regardless. And that just didn't sit well with us. We looked at, if it had to come out, just in my head, I'm thinking, the anxiety. At least he's young enough now that if we had to go in and do surgery, that
Mhm.
the worry level for him was going to be a lot less because of his age.
Oh, yeah.
Where you wait till he's 9 or 10 and he knows what's
Mhm.
potentially going to happen. I felt like let's get a second opinion and see what other professionals.
Well, and your gut was so strong about the right path. Did you put prayer into all of that, or did you feel like all of those? How did that come into play
Yeah,
for you?
where our faith guided us through this whole process.
I remember. Sorry to cut you off. I
That's okay.
remember. When we first found out that the EEG came back abnormal, and you start to worry as a parent. And I remember going to church. We started praying about it, and I was super worried. Kind of, you start to ask these questions internally, and I was praying about it. And I don't even know if my wife's heard this whole story, but I was praying about it, and I just heard not a audible voice, but I heard an internal voice saying, this it's okay. It's going to be okay. Trust me. And, you know, it relieved the stress at first. And, you know, I felt really good about it. And then, you know, you get the next test and it comes back with the results that you don't want to have. And again, you know, I would even get a little angry with God sometimes and be like, you know, you told me, you know, I've prayed about this and you told me it was going to be okay. And again, I heard you know, an internal voice saying, trust me, you know, I told you that this is going to be okay and that I've got you, trust me. And, you know, through every step of the situation, it seems like it's getting worse and worse and worse. But I always, you know, prayed on it. And I always had that comforting voice from God saying, I've got you, I've got a plan, trust me. And that's really what got me,
All of us through
you
it.
know.
Yeah, we prayed all the time. We had so many of our friends and family. Our church was praying for us. Our family's churches from our hometowns. There's so many prayers, and honestly, you think back to that time in our life, and it's like so many things happen so fast, so quickly. And not once did we hesitate in any of our decisions moving forward and going to Texas, and that was with our faith in God. And just somebody had said to me at school where I work, and I said, you know, all we can do is pray. And she said, no, that's not all you can do. That's the most you can do.
Oh, wow.
Perspective. I've never heard that. That's the most you can do is pray. It's all in God's hand, and we
That's
know He
powerful.
Sandberg into our life. It worked out
Yeah,
so perfect.
there was just something about the path that was laid out in front of us that was so clear, and everything just was put in place, you know, in line at the right time, that we just had this clear path to follow. And you know, it's unexplainable because life's chaotic. We're about to have our third child. We've got a son that's got a pretty serious, you know, brain tumor going on, yet we always had this clear, direct path to follow. We didn't always have the answers.
But we knew we were going in the right direction.
Let's
Right.
talk about these several journeys that you made to Texas. So you just have a baby, and that's supposed to be the most exciting time of your life. But I know for you, it had to be it's sort of chaotic. So you leave your precious newborn, you leave your older daughter, you pack Daxton in the car, you head this way. I just showed a picture of him at Children's Memorial Hermann, and
Yeah.
you're all fired up here. He was negative COVID, and you're home, and then you get here, and what happened?
Yeah, we got there for the MRI very early that morning. We had left our hotel by 5 a.m. to get to the hospital, and sure enough, he had tested positive for COVID. We wondered why this rapid test was taking so long. We were sitting in this little room, and it was devastating. But we'd gotten the phone call through the window. They had called us on my phone and said he is positive for COVID. But we still got to meet with Dr. Sandberg. Dr. Sandberg still came in. He still met with us. He met Daxton, shook his hand. It was amazing. And you know, we knew we were hitting a road stop here. We had a little obstacle we had to encounter. We went back home, but Dr. Sandberg said, "I'm clearing my schedule for you in 2 weeks. Come back." And although it was devastating at that time, and we had a very silent road trip home,
I bet.
we knew it was in God's plan. We knew that we were all supposed to come back as a family the second trip. We brought the girls with us, our newborn baby. And it was comfortable. We knew the hospital now. We knew the hotel we were staying at. We knew that, you know, I feel like at times too, our faith was tested at times so often, but then once again, we never looked back on anything, and we just had our trust and faith in God.
Yeah, from the first time Dr. Sandberg got a hold of us after we sent our MRI results to him, he always had this confidence about him, like, this is what we're going to do. In fact, he asked me in our first Zoom meeting, what do you guys think about having the baby and having surgery? He goes, I would operate on Daxton tomorrow if he was here. Obviously, that's not possible. What's your plan? And I looked at my wife and, you know, I said, you're strong. We've got family here. You're going to have the baby. I'm taking Daxton to Houston, and we're gonna have Dr. Sandberg help him. And Dr. Sandberg looked at me through the Zoom, through the computer, and said, no, you're gonna stay there for the birth of your third child. You're gonna be there, and you guys are gonna get in the car 5 days later, and then you're gonna come down here. And that's ultimately what we did. But then of course he tested positive, and again we're looking at Dr. Sandberg like, what do we do? And he again said, he goes, this might be tough to hear, but you're going to get in the car, you're going to go home, and you're going to spend time with your brand new baby. And you're going to get back in the car in 2 weeks, and you're going to come down here, and we're going to do this surgery. I'm going to clear my schedule for you. And that's what we're going to do. And of course that's tough to hear at the time, but you go, what, you know, this is this is the path, and that's what we did.
And
You
he
gave
was,
it the thumbs up and you pulled it off. Oh my
yeah,
goodness. That's a lot because I think about a lot of times the Texas Medical Center, Houston traffic, it can be a lot. So even if you get to the med center and you live in a surrounding community that's an hour away and you get turned away, it's devastating. But when you think about traveling across the entire country, I mean, you have an incredible attitude about it. So you come back, he gets there, we see him there. He's
yeah.
looks like he's perhaps in is that the waiting room at the hospital?
That was up on the 10th floor of the hospital. They have a bunch of games and stuff
Okay.
for the kids to go to.
They have
So
a room with a bunch of activities, and
Uh-huh.
this was maybe the third day after surgery, and second day he was
Yep.
feeling well enough to get up and walk around, and a nurse was like, hey, why don't you go up to the top floor?
Oh, that's so
And we went up there,
fun.
and of course they have some, a room for kids
Yeah.
going through the stuff that Daxton's going through to, play and have some fun while they're in the hospital.
Those first few days had to be so hard though. And it was a 6-hour surgery, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was scary. We
Yeah.
had a surgery on a Wednesday, and he was actually dismissed from the hospital on Friday, and we were just a mile down the road at a hotel, and so we were at the hotel, but it was scary. I mean, he went through
Mhm.
spurts of I'm feeling sick, I'm gonna throw up, and he had those nauseous moments. But it was Saturday. So he had surgery Wednesday. This was on Saturday morning. We had called Dr. Sandberg because we were scared, and you could tell he was at home with his family, but
Mhm.
yet he still put us first, and it
Mhm.
was just it was just amazing.
Yep.
Dr. Sandberg was the answer to all of our prayers at that
We,
moment.
we stayed in Houston till Tuesday. He had his post-op.
So about a week after surgery, and then we got the okay to go home.
And you take a look at his scar and you see all that he goes through. I guess his hair has grown out now.
Yes, it looks so good. You can still see a little bit at the bottom, but the top part you can't even hardly see. And he'll always have that little scar, but I don't know. I see that scar all the time every time he gets a haircut, but it
Oh,
reminds us of everything we went through and our faith in God at that time and
yeah.
how strong we are.
And it is, it's just a sign and a reminder of all you've been through and all you can endure, right? And get on the other side. A lot of times when things like this happen, it seems devastating at the time, but at the end of the day, especially once you're on the other side, you feel like some good has come out of all that you've been through. You appreciate
Oh,
each other more, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah, you don't take, as much things for granted. You don't take spending time with, your kids.
Mhm.
Even when you're you're the most stressed out, you try to take those moments because you don't realize
Life can change.
how quickly those could be taken from you.
And he's just growing up so much. He's so handsome. So what
Yeah.
will he be doing this fall?
He'll start junior kindergarten, so every afternoon, half from about 12 to 3, he'll go to school, and that's hard. It was hard. It was
Yeah.
easier sending our daughter to school than it was. I'm already just I tear up every time I think about him going to school, but it's comforting to know we're not sending him to school worrying because there was a point where we
Mhm.
were like, if he has to wait till he's 8 or 9 to get this tumor removed, we're gonna be stressed. We're gonna have to
Mhm.
talk to his teachers, the principal. Everybody's gonna have to know our child might have a seizure at school, and
Yeah.
I'm just so thankful we don't have to worry about that. Like, he's been
And never
seizure
expected
free.
to have, and he's not supposed to have one anymore, right? Not one seizure since the
He
surgery.
has been absolutely
Yeah.
seizure free since surgery, and he'll have another MRI. We had one in May, everything was clear, and he'll have another one in November. We'll do
Mhm.
that locally, and all the images just get sent to Dr. Sandberg and
And I bet Big Sis takes good care of him, doesn't she?
yes.
And he
Even
takes
little
care of
sister.
little sis now
Yeah.
too, probably, right?
Oh, yes. They hover over her like she's a baby doll.
Yeah.
Well, your family is just precious. You're beautiful inside and out. I could tell that the second I met you through online, through this. Thank you for sharing your story with us at Fox 26 Houston. I wish you only the best, only good health from here on out for your precious Daxton. And thanks for your sharing your love and faith of God with me.
Thank you so much. Texas will always hold a special place in our heart.
Oh, I bet it will. Well, you will hold a special one in ours with your story. So thank you again for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
All right. Again, wishing you all the best. And I want to remind all of you at home, you can always join me at 12:30 right here on Fox 26. Next week, you can count on another uplifting lunch for the soul. I'm going to introduce you to a young cancer patient who found out she had a massive tumor right here, potentially fatal tumor. The only way she found out is she was accidentally kicked in the face at school. Now, you talk about things lining up. First of all, when do you ever hear of a little girl at school being kicked in the face? And doctors say they never would have found it until it was late stage, and they wouldn't have been able to find it if she hadn't been kicked in the face. I get teared up just thinking about it. So I'll share that with you next Wednesday at 12:30. And then I want to remind you, if you happen to tune in late and you didn't get all of the Zeller story, you can always go to our Fox 26 YouTube and you can watch it from the very beginning. And then you can watch any of the previous ones. It's just a time again to hopefully lift you up to realize people go through a lot of hard stuff, but most of the time when they rely on their faith, they get through it on the other side brilliantly. Bless you, be blessed. Thanks for blessing me with your presence. And I hope to see you here again next week. Same time, 12:30 right here on Lunch for the Soul.